There was a law review article done, I don't know, a number of years ago at this point,
Okay.
um, where they talked about student loan discharge cases in bankruptcy and how only 2% of them got approved. And I think that that has really gone a really long way towards playing into that messaging that, well, why bother?
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. Right.
student loans can't be wiped out in bankruptcy. At the same time, particularly with this attestation for the federal student loans, there's actually, as of the middle of July of last year, so these numbers are a little bit old, but 98% of all cases submitted under the attestation process led to full or partial relief. So,
98%.
yeah, but of course it's cherry picked.
No, I understand, but
It's
that's still
it it
amazing.
it is, but it's cherry picked in exactly the same way that the 2% is cherry picked, because
Right.
most people who seek a discharge of their student loans in bankruptcy do so without an attorney.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I
they
see.
walk in and they're essentially making a plea to the court.
Yeah.
They're not making a legal argument. They're making a plea to the court. And that plea often doesn't rise to the level of proof that's required in order
Right.
to get things
Right.
done. Also, a lot of people who file for bankruptcy and seek a discharge of their student loans, they're they're looking at it as a binary decision, as a, am I going to get discharged or am I not going to
Right.
get discharged, as opposed to walking into that adversary proceeding with a strategy in mind. What do we reasonably think? What's the strength of the case? What do we reasonably think that we can get out of it? And what's the basis for that decision? So I think that the true numbers, you want to bring out 2%.
Right.
All that does is it scares the hell out of
Yeah.
people
Right. Right. Right.
and doesn't give a real flavor of things.
What?
So too the 98%, because it's cherry picked and it's the federal student loans only.
What's amazing to me, what you just said, is that some people actually try to, get their student loans discharged or whatever
Yeah.
lowered without an attorney. Like
Yeah.
it's complex, right? I mean, can you actually do that without an attorney? Like what? I mean, that success rate has got to be way, way low.
Yeah, that's the 2% success
Right.
rate.
Okay.
It in order to get your student loans discharged without any legal help whatsoever,
Right.
the odds are so stacked against you
Yeah.
that, and then when you fail, you walk out into the rest of the world and you tell everybody else that it can't be
Everyone.
done.
Yeah. Well,
It,
and you because if you're a non-lawyer going up against the Department of Justice with their team of lawyers, or you're a non-lawyer going to a private student loan like lender, they have their lawyers. They're thinking to myself, oh my God, this is nothing. I'm rolling over this case. But the
sure.
teeth of a bankruptcy attorney doing it is saying, hey, I'm going to file bankruptcy or I'm going to follow the law this way. The attestation form, the checklists that need to be done in order to wipe out these student loans.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've got an understanding of how to put together a legal argument, whether or not you actually have a good enough case to file in the first
Right.
place. You know, working with an attorney, at the very least,
Hmm.
if nothing else, you won't waste your time filing a case that you shouldn't file.
Yeah.
And if there's another option for you, whether there's going to be a discharge or forgiveness outside of bankruptcy, whether there's a settlement opportunity outside of bankruptcy, if you're not going through this process with an attorney who actually understands the lay of the land, as well as how the bankruptcy code operates for student loans, I think you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice. That said, most people who are in Chapter 7 bankruptcies, they look at the perceived costs of an adversary proceeding, of hiring an attorney for that adversary proceeding, and they inflate it in their
Yeah.
heads.
Yeah.
And so they don't even bother. Or and The third thing that happens, and this is far more frequently, is they've used an attorney for their 7 or their 13. They've gone back to the attorney and asked about a student loan discharge. The attorney said either, "No, you can't do it," or, "No, I don't handle it,"
Yeah.
without without giving the client some sort of a resource to utilize in the event that they wanna do so.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
really, and the thing is, I see on these discharges that come in from our various listeners and watchers and viewers, the savings on some of these cases are shocking. I mean, we're not
oh, yeah.
talking necessarily like 5 or $10,000, right?
Mhm.
We're talking 50, 75, $100,000
Sure,
in
sure.
savings. And as
Yep,
you said, for those that are being submitted right now, 2025, to the Department of Justice with the proper attestation form, with the proper checklist accordingly by an attorney, we're talking a 98%
yeah,
like success rate in terms of
yeah,
full discharge or meaningful discharge.
yeah, yeah. And the place that I love student loan discharges the most are when we're dealing with private loans, because private student loans, first of all, the vast majority of them have variable interest rates
Mhm.
with no caps on them.
I didn't know
The
that.
yeah, they're horrifying. The vast majority of them have cosigners, guarantors, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, somebody with deeper pockets.
Mhm.
They've got these cosigners that are also legally liable, and the private student loan companies don't offer any income-driven repayment options, don't offer any
Yeah.
forgiveness options, don't offer anything. So at the very least, if you're in bankruptcy for other reasons, seldom advocate going into bankruptcy purely for the
Mhm.
student loans.
Yeah.
But if you're in bankruptcy and you have a private student loan, by filing a discharge case, you put yourself in the position of being able to at least get somebody with some decision-making authority representing that private loan holder
Yeah.
across the table from you to be able to work out a meaningful settlement, whether that's gonna be, release of your cosigner or a fixed interest rate or a fixed repayment term, something that's going to make it easier for you to be able to handle the private student loan, even if you're not looking for the discharge. And so that's really the sweet spot. The attestations and the federal student loan discharges and attestations are great, but they're for a very narrow
Okay.
group of borrowers.
Yeah.
The loan's gotta be older. You've gotta have a certain track record with respect to your employment history and whether that track record is voluntary or involuntary. Your past earnings history comes into play.
Yeah. More complicated.
Your other resources, your age, your generalized health. It's it's really useful, but for many people who it is useful for, they've got options outside of bankruptcy. Some of them maybe up for discharge fairly soon on their loans outside of bankruptcy. You don't know.
I mean, the
Uh,
practicality is people think that for years, you've heard it, taxes and student loans, you can't do
sure,
anything with. The reality is that that market's changed. That narrative needs to be changed in the marketplace through people like you. And what we're trying to do out there is getting people to say, look at student loans. It doesn't mean you're going to file bankruptcy. Bankruptcy may be the way to go to help
sure.
you get a better settlement, but the right attorney can guide you down the way. Jay Fleishman, moneywiselaw.com. Thanks so much, Jay.
Thank you.
Bankruptcy Explained.